Retirement accounts, the engine that drives your retirement plan. I'm Kevin Tharp, elder law and estate planning attorney.
And I'm Gary Anderson, financial advisor, Anderson Advisors.
Gary, I think one of the reasons that a lot of times people don't really pay attention a lot to that 401k, really don't fully understand what it is that they have, is because it's kind of like, I'm not a car expert, so I don't know all the ins and outs of an engine. I just know that when it's not working, it's not working. And so I do little things that I know I can do to make sure that it doesn't break down. Things like just periodically getting the oil checked and all the fluids and everything else checked. And I think that's an important part of our retirement planning, even after we've retired, is just do some annual maintenance and checkups. And I think one of it starts with just knowing exactly what it is you have. Mm-hmm. Do I have a 401k? Do I have a 403b? Is it an individual retirement account? And you did a good job, I think, of explaining the differences in the previous segment. But now let's talk about some specific parts of the engine and how they can all work together.
And Kevin, I think that's a great analogy, because that engine, as long as you keep fine-tuning it and making sure that it's built to run the distance, then you're not going to have any problems with your retirement. I think people sell themselves short a lot of times, though, because they feel like, we've messed up over the years. We had to spend money on kids in college, and we had to buy cars and houses and insurance and everything else. And we just never really saved any money, and now we're really concerned about it, because now we're 45 years old, 50 years old maybe, 55, and we don't know what we're going to do. We don't know if we're ever going to be able to retire or not, because we don't know if we have anything to be able to do that with. And that's a good starting point. Sometimes you find out you do have things you don't have, number one. I had a guy come in the office about a year ago, and he was talking about, I think I've done okay over the years, but I really don't have money set aside for retirement. And then we started talking about, okay, where'd you work before? And he gave me one employer. Well, I knew they had a 401k plan. Did he participate or not? Well, we'll find out. Then he gave me another employer. And, the man had worked during his working career, and he was still working. He's still working now. He had worked for 7 different employers. Every single one of those employers had a 401k plan. And one was a public employer, so it was a 403b. But every one of those had a 401k plan. Come to find out, he had really just forgotten that he had contributed to those plans, and the employer had contributed as well. And those plans, those 401k accounts were still sitting out there. And, one employer, he had worked for him so long ago, he didn't really even know how to get in touch with them, but you can always do that. And one employer was not even in business anymore, but lo and behold, the 401k plan was still there. It's still sitting out there. And so it takes a little work to track that down. But he found out he had a very, very good start to a retirement. What did we do? Well, we collected all those 401ks. We put them together. We collected them in a way that wasn't going to cost him tax-wise, because if you take these money from a 401k the wrong way, then the IRS is going to send you a nice 1099, the following year for however much money you took out, and you're paying taxes
with the
on
return envelope expecting a check. Right?
Yeah, and a thank you letter. No, the thank you note they never do. I don't know why they do that.
Letter.
But anyway, they're going to send you that. So let's make sure you get it transferred out of there the right way. We don't want you cashing it out and then having to go through that whole rigmarole. But we did all that. We had a concerted effort then, because some of his investments weren't all that great, and some of them were too aggressive, and some weren't even aggressive enough. We put it together in his cohesive retirement plan, because the retirement plan itself now is using these accounts to address income when he does retire, which is only a couple of years away. This man thought he was never going to be able to retire, and now he's not far off, just because he pulled these accounts together. And so that's one thing I invite people to do too. Think about that. 2 spouses. Both of you have probably worked over the years a good bit. Both of you probably have worked for different employers over the years. So don't just think, no, they didn't have a plan. Both spouses need to have that conversation with each other to make sure that, hey, yeah, you remember that thing that you did over there? Remember that time you worked for that company for 3 years? Let's check that out. Well, a lot of times those things are there, and then it's just a matter as a previous employee, a former employee of a company, pulling those things together in your own IRA and having that working in concert with your overall retirement plan. And it's amazing to see how that works for people.
We're talking about retirement accounts, the engine of our retirement plan today on Truth and Planning. I'm talking with Gary Anderson. And Gary, let me pose to you a question. Let's say that I work for Acme Widget Company, and I've worked for them for a number of years, and then I get an offer for XYZ Widget Company, and I transfer companies. Okay. Can I take my 401k with me?
Most plans allow for you to do that. Most plans allow for you to transfer your 401k to the next employer. Some don't. You really have to find out from your sponsor, your plan sponsor, your employer, if you're able to do that. But for the most part, you can. You can take all the 401ks together and put them in one 401k, the 401k you have right now with your company. Sometimes the employer, your new employer, doesn't allow you to do it. But it's in there. It's in black and white. You can be able to see that and know what it will do. If you can't, then basically you're setting up an IRA outside of that, and you're pulling those funds into there, which we typically do a lot of that. The main reason we like to see you start an IRA with some of those funds from way back, you do have more choices of investment when you have your own IRA versus the 401k your employer has. There's some good 401ks out there, and they've got some good options. In the past, all they could put you in was a mutual fund, different mutual funds that match whatever your risk tolerance and whatever your retirement picture looks like. But the only thing you can do is just pick mutual funds. A lot of employers now are able to get away from that and offer other types of investments, individual stocks, things like that, exchange-traded funds.
Annuities?
So that has broadened. Yeah, exactly. Annuities as well. That's something that recently, over the past year, that's been allowed is to include annuities as a part of an overall 401k plan, because annuities address the subject of income, and they do a good job of that. So you can't take that out of the picture. That's got to be part of the overall picture too, because sometimes annuities fit and can fit very well with your overall plan. Remember, a lot of times there's two spouses here. So you can actually invest differently for each spouse given the goals that you have. But yes, annuities need to be a part of it. And there are different types of annuities, and that's confusing in and of itself. We tend to steer away from variable annuities mainly because variable annuities go up and down with the market. Variable annuities have fees involved that we don't like, so we do steer away from those. They do fit certain purposes out there, but there are annuities that fit an overall retirement plan very well. Your employer now can actually use those as part of your 401k, as well as when you move money. Sometimes you do that. You put money in an annuity in addition to your other investments to make sure that there's something out there that's going to give you a real good idea of what your income is going to be, and that's what annuities do.
Gary, I know there's some advisors out there that call themselves financial advisors, yet they're just limited to one particular product, typically annuities or life insurance-backed products. Mm-hmm. But you as a financial advisor can look at all aspects of investments as a part of a person's 401k plan.
Kevin, we're independent advisors, and what we can do that sometimes a lot of other people can't do is offer just about any type of investment that's available, any type of good, valid investment that's available out there. Because you don't want to take anything off the table. It needs to be a part of your overall plan, so make sure you've got those choices. And this is what we do. And people can call us, and we always offer a consultation to people. We don't charge for it because we think people need the good information, just like we mentioned earlier. And you can call us at 888-371-2847. Our website, gary-anderson.com, and we'll be glad to have you come in and just have a conversation about where you are right now.
You're listening to Truth and Planning on North Georgia's News Talk, AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN.